Thank you, Jeremy. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody had a happy Easter weekend. With Jay and Phil coming later, I'll let them talk mostly about personnel. So I'll touch on some of it. But I was disappointed when Coach Williams decided to retire. You go back and look at my history here. I had Coach Smith, I had Coach Guthridge, and then I had Coach Williams. So that's my Carolina basketball life. So I'm happy for him. I'm not going to enjoy playing golf with him near as much now that he's free to play every day, because he was better than I was to start with, and now it's going to get worse. So, Hubert Davis is a guy I enjoyed watching play when I was here. And he got on me yesterday. He said, Todd Burnett was a quarterback, and I was his wide receiver. You signed Todd Burnett and you turned me down. And I said, well, it worked out okay for you. So he had a very passionate words with our team. I was very impressed. It was off the cuff. He just showed up and I said, will you say something? And he really got to their hearts. So really excited about Hubert moving forward. Obviously, Coach Williams and I had a great working relationship, like I did with Coach Guthridge and Coach Smith, and it will continue with Coach Davis. So wish him well and want to help him in any way we can. One announcement as we're going forward that I'm very, very proud of, Quincy Monk, who was an inside linebacker for us here and played with the Giants. I recruited him out of Jacksonville. He was actually a quarterback. And he passed away in cancer in 2015 at a very early age, and left us way too soon and broke a lot of hearts. And I still follow his mom and his family on Facebook. A group of 12 of his teammates have donated money to name the linebacker room the Quincy Monk linebacker room. So that's really cool. And he would have forever been in our football history with his legacy anyway. But that every day that I walk by that linebacker room now, I'll have a smile on my face, remembering all the great things about Quincy Monk. So proud of those guys for stepping up and donating the room. We divided spring practice up into 3 different phases. You have 15 days. The first 2 had to be in shorts by NCAA rules. And then since then, we've had 4 in pads. So we're into the second phase. So we set goals for the first phase, and you can talk to Phil and Jay about their goals for each of their areas, as well as special teams. And now we're into the second phase. So you go back and reevaluate your first 5 days and talk about what we have to get done in the next 5 days. And most of that right now is personnel evaluation, because we're working really, really hard at separating positions. We got a lot of good players at different places. We need some to step up and be great players. And that's what we're working to see. I thought we had a very good practice yesterday, especially coming off of Easter break. And the guys really worked hard. And we said we're getting more competition right now because we got better players competing against each other in practice. The older guys, we're letting them do a lot of individual work. And if we've put in a new scheme on offense or defense, we're letting the older guys learn that new scheme. But by and large, they're doing drill work, the experienced guys, and they're not doing a lot of the other teamwork or scrimmage type stuff. But we said competition has stepped up at every level, and that's what we've got to continue to do. We will be releasing information soon on the spring game, and that's how to get tickets, how to get in, how many we can have based on the governor's guidelines for COVID. So that should be out soon. So if our fans are asking, we will scrimmage on Saturday. We'll practice for a little bit, and then we will scrimmage. That will be open. And what we will do is we'll have our experienced guys probably thud the first part of scrimmage, and then we'll actually scrimmage and have a game as such with our younger guys at the end of that have not played as many plays. Vaccines are starting to be available on campus for our students and our staff. And we're encouraging all of our players to get the vaccine. We've got to figure out guidelines. If we have some who will not, we've got to figure out what does that mean for those that do. Do we still have to wear a mask? Do we still have to social distance? Do we still have contact tracing? And how could that affect us? We've been very good that our tests are still coming back negative. So I'm really, really proud of the guys and the staff that they're continuing to do the things they need to do to have a great spring practice. But we know that COVID's still out there and it's still strong in areas. And that's why we would encourage our players to get the vaccine. We still don't have any scholarship updates for our 22s, how many scholarships will be available, or if that process will change. So we're still waiting on that information from the NCAA. And also we feel like by April 15th, we should be able to get some information on the access for June. We have our camps set up. We're getting great response for camps. We are setting some official visits. We're setting unofficial visits. But obviously we're hoping that June is open so the 22s and 23s can start coming to our campus, because they haven't been on our campus now for over a year, where we could sit and visit with them or work with them. So we'll keep you updated as soon as we get information on June access, which is huge for our recruiting. We will let you know. Questions? Excuse me, one other. Yes. Bo Corrales is working in spring practice, probably about 3/4 speed. We don't know for sure whether he will have full speed work or play in the spring game. Jaquarius Brown is out of the spring for the rest of practice, but we've been assured that when we start summer workouts, he'll be ready to go and be full speed ahead for the summer. Questions?
Okay, Ross Martin, please get us underway.
Hey, Coach. Coach Brown, I wanted to ask you some questions about the basketball deal and situation there. You mentioned that you and Roy Williams have a great working relationship and that you hope that is the same with Hubert Davis. What is that relationship in terms of how y'all can benefit each other, the basketball team, the football team? What's that look like, and kind of how's that go at UNC?
Ross, the biggest thing is that if we have some guys who would like to play basketball, if they can, the biggest thing would be I would call Coach Williams and say, would you talk to Des Evans, because he has interest in joining your basketball team after we get through with football season. And Roy was unbelievable. He always said yes. And his rule was they got to compete hard, they got to play hard, they got to show up, and they got to do well academically. And our rule is that if he wants you, and if you're doing well academically, you can go. And we did that with Greg Ellis. We did that with Octavius Barnes. We did that with Julius Peppers. So it has worked for us in the past. And so that's a huge part of it. Somebody like Greg Black's mom said, if you'll let me meet Coach Dean Smith before the Duke game this weekend many years ago, then Greg will commit. And I laughed and said, I've been here 5 years. I haven't met Coach Smith, but I'll try to see if I can get it worked out. And Coach Smith took Greg and his mom in and sat down with them for 30 minutes before a huge Duke basketball game, just to help us recruit. And mom was right. Greg committed to us right after that. So the biggest part of it is recruiting. I'm a huge basketball fan. All my kids grew up with Carolina. They're huge basketball fans. So I'll be at every game I can and be at. And if I'm not there, our assistant coaches are begging me for the tickets. So, but I think that's the biggest part where the relationship works for us. And then Hubert would bring guys to our games and put them on the sideline before the game. And I would obviously talk to any basketball recruit or any other sport on our campus if they have a recruit at any time, if I can help our quote athletic family get better.
If I could follow quickly, Mark, Keyshawn Silver mentioned that he wanted to walk on to the basketball team. Is that still going to happen? What do you think about that? Is there any developments there?
Yes. When Hubert came out to practice yesterday, I didn't see Dez, but I asked Keyshawn to run over, and basically Hubert assured them that anything that Coach Williams had told them still stands good. So Keyshawn, if he's doing all the things right for us and still wants to, we'll have that opportunity after football season next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CL Brown, go ahead.
Hey, Mac. I wanted to get into turnovers because obviously that was something you mentioned throughout last season, trying to produce more. But how do you do that? Like, I'm curious on, how in spring practice do you kind of foster, I don't even know how you go about doing that other than, just being well scouted and executing. So I'm curious what are the steps you're taking to try and do that now?
CL, it's a great question. And teams that win all the games usually have 22 plus 22 or 23 turnover ratio. I mean, that makes the difference in whether you win or lose. So obviously it's very important. And sometimes we say they come in bunches. Sometimes you'll get 7 of them in a row, and then you'll go 3 games and not get any. And every day we'll have a staff meeting at 2:00 today. I will talk about ball security with the offense because we've done a great job in that area. And then I'll talk about, we always call it tip and rip, tip a ball that a quarterback throws and rip a ball out of the runner's hands. And I'm seeing a lot of guys trying to rip now. It's harder when you're in thud in practice because you've got to hit somebody and try to rip the ball. And it's harder when you're standing on your feet and doing all that. So that's not as conducive to forcing turnovers. But turnovers are usually forced when you've got a good enough defense that the initial guy can get there and make the hit, and other guys get there and start stripping the ball. And we haven't been that good. We've been okay. We've been middle of the road on defense. So we're hoping that will get better. The second place turnovers occur is when you stop somebody on first down and the quarterbacks are in second and long and third and long, and you affect the quarterback's throws because you can put pressure and by pass rush, by blitz, tip a ball, get him to throw it too quickly, get him to throw it as he's running out of the pocket off balance. And that's when you really get your turnovers. And very honestly, we haven't been great at either one of those. So we're really looking at who are our most effective pass rushers. And we're putting them against our best offensive linemen, and we'll have a package when we get them in a throwing position to have our best pass rushers on the field. And we should have better pass rushers now than we've had for the previous 2 years overall. We should have more. So that's one of the huge goals for this spring. Who can rush the passer? And the other thing is the third phase would be who can catch balls in the secondary. It used to be that if a guy couldn't catch, you put him at corner or put him at safety because he couldn't play wide receiver in the old days. Now you need interceptions. So it's hard to play a defensive back that can't catch. And like Cam Kelly had one yesterday that he reached, and it would have been a great catch with one hand. He came to me immediately and said, I got to get that ball. That's a turnover. I got it. So they know it. It's there. It's real. And now we've got to make it happen.
Okay, next up is Andrew Jones.
Hey, Coach, I'm kind of curious what your take is on the second-year guys in the program, the ones that didn't have a spring last year, and a lot of them played just having a fall camp and kind of thrown out there in some respects. How has that group kind of changed and sort of morphed into the role of more experienced players that have sort of been there, done that way about them? And if there's any of them that has kind of surprised you and how they have elevated their games, their bodies, their approaches from last year?
Yeah, Andrew, it's another great question, but you start looking at the number they gave me the other day, which shocked me. And I haven't even followed up on it. Staff told me we only have 21 guys who have been through a spring practice because we're so young. And I think there's like maybe 70 out of our 85 or 90 next year are going to be freshmen or sophomores. So we're still a really, really young program. But just for instance, a guy that stands out would be Josh Downs. Josh had no off-season work, which he would have had if he had been here in spring. and he didn't get to play as much because Daz was playing really well and Daz could run forever. But now Josh Downs looks great. So I felt like if he had had spring practice and a better, more organized summer, because we had COVID rules all summer where they couldn't do one-on-ones and they couldn't use a ball for a while. We had so many rules that we really didn't have a good summer workout either. So that's just an example of he looks great. And he looks like a veteran now, where he didn't earlier in the season last year. The second part of that would be the big guys. You lose strength. And it's very, very difficult. Brian Hess, to me, is one of the best in the country at what he does. But it was a lot harder to get the big guys' strength when you didn't have an off-season program. And again, we were really limited in the summer with what we could do. So he's having these workouts on Zoom where you can't even talk to them and can't see them. And you don't know whether they're working out or not. So a lot of the kids had to use their own accountability to do that. But on the other side of that, the 12 new guys that have come in, I'm seeing tremendous strength gains with them. I'm seeing them get better every practice. Those two young linebackers are running around all over the place. I'm seeing a DJ Jones who, again, he and Elijah Green came in without any work at all last year. And I'm seeing both of them look like college football players now and being much more efficient and ready to go. They're working on pass protection and they're catching the ball out of the backfield better. And we didn't see any of that when they got here. So we just had no information. The NCAA did help us then and now with the 2 weeks of walkthroughs. And I think we're all critical of the NCAA. That's one thing that has really helped that we can teach. But even Ty Chandler with his 2 weeks of walkthroughs and his 6 days of spring practice, he's getting stronger. I think, and Hess or Bateman could tell us, but I think, for instance, Tony Grimes, who was a high school senior, he's gained 20 pounds since he's been here. And he just looks different in his body than he did before. Keyshawn Silver he was 255 when he committed to us. He's 306 pounds. So being in a strength program with Kelsey, our nutritionist, does an amazing job. They have to eat every meal. She checks every meal. She looks at every calorie. So it's efficient eating. So those things matter. And we lost that all of last spring and last summer.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg Barnes, go ahead.
You mentioned the 3 phases of spring ball. Wondering if you can just flesh that out for us. Obviously, the first phase has to do with the acclimation period. But what are you trying to achieve in each of these phases?
Greg, ask the 2 coordinators that, because we set individual goals for each group. And then at some point, we should get Jeremy to get Javon DeWitt on here with you and do the same with special teams. So we said here are things that must improve. One of them being pass rush. Why don't we rush the passer better? How can we improve our individual guys? And who are they? So like I will ask, who are the best pass rushers in your mind? Give it 1 through 5. And maybe let's go 1 through 8. And that'll be the 2 deep if we've got 4 pass rushers in the game at a certain time. And we challenge the guys with that. But each phase has to come up, each unit coach has to come up with 3 to 5 things that you have to do really well to play my position. And it'd be interesting for you all to ask them what they are. And then we grade them. And that's how we determine who moves up and who moves down, who is doing the things that they have to do to perfect that position. And then as a group, improve pass protection, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands better, have lower pads with those young defensive linemen. A huge one is chase the ball 100% every play. And if you're not, we're going to take you out. And we call them out on every play on our video. And we're going to start making it a disciplinary action. If they don't sprint during practice, then they're going to get that sprint after practice, because we've always done our conditioning during practice. But if you're not going to do it, then we'll keep you out afterwards and let you do that. So you have your goals for that first 5 days, evaluate them, reevaluate where you are. Do you need to continue to work on some of those, or do you set 5 more or 4 more for the second 5 days? And then what do we have to do in the end?
Great.
The other thing that's really interesting for this year for all of us and you folks is the way I understand it. And we could get Jeremy to get the information to you, but I think that you cannot transfer in the transfer portal after May 10th. So, I mean, we'll have 10 days if a young man wants to transfer after spring practice. There's about a short window there where they will have to come in and tell us they want to transfer, and then they got to go. So that's really the first time that's ever happened and very unique for all of us. So I'm asking our coaches now, let's talk to each player. If you're in this role, are you going to be okay with that? If you're projected in this role, are you going to go to the portal? Are you going to think about transferring? What's your mindset? So we won't get caught off guard if 5 guys leave within a week after spring practice and we had no clue. So we're trying to keep an open communication about a very uncomfortable subject, just to make sure everybody knows what's going on.
Jacob Turner, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, I want to talk about your coaching style real quick. We obviously have seen it in the past since you've been here and also at the open practice a couple weekends ago. You're very hands-off with your assistant coaches in practice in terms of letting them run the drills and coach the players and all that kind of stuff. So when you're walking around to these different position groups and watching them, are you evaluating the players just as much as you're evaluating the coaches, vice versa? Like, what is it that you're looking for in these instances when you're kind of walking around the field and checking these different groups out?
Yes. Jacob, I keep my phone, which I used to do it on a pad and pencil. It's so more efficient. So I'm constantly putting notes on my phone to me. And I am very hands-on with the coaches in this building and in our staff room. Mm-hmm. I mean, very difficult, very hard on them, very demanding. And they know that. They laugh when people say, yeah, he's so nice and he's so easy to work for. They all say, yeah, you ought to come see us. But they can't be sensitive. I've told them, coaches will say, oh, those players are so sensitive, man. I said, you are too. I tell you this, you're not doing this right and you act like a baby and you pout. So come on, man, grow up. We're trying to win. Everything we do is about winning. So most of what I'm doing is making sure that we're doing everything right as coaches during practice. A lot of coaches like to yell at assistants on the field. They like to be seen. They like to tell people they can coach. I've always felt like if I yell at an assistant in front of his players, I'm demeaning him in front of them and taking away some of his ability for them to have confidence in him. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to coach them inside. I'm going to coach them away from everybody else. And I also think it's very disrespectful when you're yelling at a coach because of his inability to coach his players. I don't like that. That's just not my style at all. And then most of what I do, I'll put some notes about players, but most of what I do with the players is off video. So we'll come off the field and sit down and I'll watch 2 or 3 hours of practice video and I'll go over every drill and I'm constantly writing notes for my staff notes about don't put the ball on the line every time. Move the ball off the line because we have to work on alignment. And why are we having false starts? I don't understand that. We don't even have a snap count. So help me with false starts. How can we line up offsides? We got officials out there. Check with the official. So there's 4 pages of that stuff. In fact, they get it. So they walk in and they look to see if their name's on the staff notes and they're happy if they're not. But I've told them you do your job and you won't be on there. But that's, and then we say that we're doing a lot of individual drills now where the running backs and the linebackers have a score drill where the running back's running and the linebackers got to keep him out of the end zone. And we haven't been able to do that in the past, some because we just weren't deep enough. We had a great outside linebacker tight end drill with all different types of blockings yesterday. There was a tight end and a tackle. And So we're doing a lot of things against each other that are more physical than we were able to do the first 2 years. And I really like that. It's just, but we'll, and the other thing we'll do, Jacob, is we'll take wonderful plays of hustle, and I'll show them in the staff room, and then we'll take them to the players. Here's Jaquarius Conley. He came on the blitz, and Sam gets the ball out of his hands. He turns and sprints and tackles the guy down the boundary. So everybody needs to see what a great play is. And if you're griping that you're not playing in front of him, that's why you're not playing. He's making those plays, and we show loaf plays. And if we have a bad drill or a bad inside drill, I'll take it to the staff and we'll sit there and I'll say, help me with this. This is inadequate. We're not going to play this way. They're too high. They're soft. So that's what my job is. My job is to tell our guys what I see that I like and to tell them what concerns me that needs to be fixed. And then it also helps me a lot. I eat lunch with the players every day, and I'll eat dinner with them quite a bit because I want to see them. And I can walk by and say, hey, Keyshawn, you did a great job in inside, man. I like that. You're getting better. Or I can walk by and say to Jordan Tucker, God, you're too high. Come on, man, get low. You got to get your pads down because they need to know that I know. And I also tell them, I'm going to make sure each one of you has a fair shot. So don't say mad. If you're not playing at quarterback, don't get mad at Coach Longo. He and I make that decision, not just him. And we got a lot of eyeballs on you in practice. So, and we go back, Jacob, to everything we do is to win. We want to have fun. We want them all to graduate. We want them to get more prepared when they get out of here with branding and life after football and name, image, and likeness. And hope they make all the money they can make, but we got to win. And it all comes down to winning. And if you don't win, it doesn't work. So my job is to give our coaches advantages by helping them with things that I don't feel like they're doing as well. We take pictures of everybody that has a ball in their arm, and we post the ones that are carried properly, and we post the ones that are out here. And we said, you're not going to play if you can't carry the ball properly. So that's the process that we go through. And I've got my faith, my family, and my football family, and that's it. I got nothing else. So that's all I do, and I do it every day. And I can't go home without watching that practice. I have to watch it immediately. And then sometimes I'll watch it 3 or 4 times because I'm watching every player. And I have to watch it from an offensive side, and then you have a shot from the back of the defense. So I'll probably watch it twice on both ends. And our coaches are great. Some of them weren't great when we got here, but when I'm hard on them right now, they're great. They want to win. And I've told them, if you disagree with what I say, come see me about it. But these are facts that I think this needs to get fixed, and you tell me. You come to me and tell me if I'm not right, and then I'll be fine with it because I'm not always right. But we're very direct and we're very aggressive with everything we talk about in the staff room.
Matt, quick follow-up. Is there anything that changes in your coaching style between spring practice and fall camp in the regular season? Are you more hands-on maybe in practice directly and maybe more quick to step in and say things to players during the regular season than you are in spring? Is there any difference between the two?
No, I'm probably the same person every day. I talk to the team before every practice. We have a team meeting, and I have a message for the day. And I'm probably more aggressive on some mornings than I am others. But I think I need to be fair with everything we do, with you all, with our players, with our parents. I need to be consistent because I don't want the coaches to come in not knowing whether I'm going to yell at them or scream at them or throw something against the wall or laugh and cut up with them. I don't want our coaches on edge. I want them coaching. And I've asked them to coach our players like they would want their sons to be coached or their daughters to be coached. Well, I want to treat them like I want to be treated. And the great mentors I had were very direct with me. And that's what I am. I'm going to be very direct with our coaches. And that's what I learned. And to me, that helps. And then, Jacob, after we get through, we walk out of there, go about your business and go on. So if I jump on one of our coaches about something, I want it fixed, and I want it fixed now. Or if I think he's not treating a player fair, I may even bring the player in and sit him down with the coach and say, look, I don't like the way this is going. Let's get it fixed. What do you think? What do you think? What's wrong? But that's why our players trust us, because we're so direct with them. But at the same time, when we get an issue handled and we move on, I'm through. I'll go to something else. I don't sit there and stay mad at a coach all day because of something he did. And if I have to correct him a lot and I stay mad a lot, I'm gonna fire him. I mean, that's it. I've said, get it fixed. And if you don't get it fixed, I gotta move on. I gotta get somebody else to get it fixed. So even if you disagree with me and I want it done, I am the boss. So get it fixed. And if you don't like it, go somewhere else. And if you don't get it fixed, I got to make another change, because we're trying to win. And it's really, really important to me, for this university and for this community and for this state, that we're really, really good in football.
Thanks, Mack.
Thank you.
Okay, Coach, we've come up against 11:30. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy Coach Longo and Coach Bateman, and we'll see you Saturday. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, gang, we got offensive coordinator Phil Longo.
Thank you, Still. Good morning. How you guys doing?
Hey, Phil, thanks for joining us today, Coach. Our first question for you comes from Dina King. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach, a lot of questions in that running back group, losing Javante and Michael. Just want to know how that's coming along, and, you know, adding a new running back coach and Coach Porter. How's that group doing?
Well, you know, I think when you get into spring, it's always you have a high comfort level when you have a room returning with a lot of veterans that you know can play and have a lot of snaps and starts under their belt and a lot of wins under their belt. And, you know, that right now would sound like our offensive line room or our quarterback room. But, you know, aside from that, which is an ideal situation, it's a lot of fun going into the spring, knowing that you have talent in a particular room. It's younger and it may not be completely developed. We may not know who's going to rise to the top yet and become, you know, the guys that fill the shoes of Michael Carter and Javante Williams. But right now, I mean, there's 6 guys in that room with the new running backs coach and Larry Porter. And every day, you know, we're doing something with regards to what we script in practice to put these guys in not just run situations, but pass protection situations and pass catching situations, because we've got a lot of guys to evaluate. And so it's unique and it's a good problem to have, because there are so many talented guys in the room that we've got to figure out, you know, who we're going to roll into the opening game with at Virginia Tech. And so it's fun because we've got guys that are competing hard and they're smart, and it's a great room. And all of them have flashed at one point or another in practice, you know, to date.
Thank you.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, Mack has mentioned Josh Downs a few times in the last few weeks and spoken very highly of him. Can you kind of articulate how he has grown and the things that we may have seen in the bowl game? What else is he showing you now, and how good is he?
Well, you know, I'll be honest, after we left Miami, you know, and the dust settled and we go back and watch the film, from a coordinator standpoint, I asked myself, I said, boy, Josh really showed up in the bowl game, you know, and he executed. And he did a good job being the complement on the other side of the formation to Daz Newsome, you know, who still played in the game. And so, you know, the question I asked myself was, should we have played this guy earlier, you know, during the season? But when I looked back at the season, you know, Josh Downs wasn't the same product at the beginning of the year, you know, that he was heading into the bowl game. And we didn't have 2.5 weeks to prep for all of those games. We did for the bowl game. And I think what you saw in the bowl game was twofold. One, you saw the product and the the reward to all the work that Coach Galloway put in with Josh and that entire room. And you saw, to Josh's credit, 11 games of progress at that point in time to go out and perform the way he did. And he gave us, a prolific play threat in that game that, we thought we were losing in the 3 that did not come to the game. So now going in the spring ball, I think he's matured, he's grown. I think he'd tell you that too. We were just talking about that yesterday, he and I. We're doing more things with him, and he's viewed now as a guy that fully understands the offense. He's a very intelligent son of a coach. He's a very, very intelligent football player. And he's driven. And in a lot of ways, Josh Downs is Josh Downs. He's not anybody else, but he reminds me of Elijah Moore, the slot that we had at Ole Miss. They're very, very similar. They can change direction. They have a burst. They have great speed. They have great hands, and they're both very intelligent football players. And so I'm really excited, probably as much as you are, to see what kind of season he can put together this year.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Greg Barnes, go ahead.
Hey, Phil, Mack gave us kind of a general overview of the concept of breaking up spring ball into 3 phases. And I was hoping that you could provide some specifics in terms of what you're wanting to accomplish with those 3 phases.
So, when you break up the 15 days, obviously each phase is basically 5 days. That's how, he laid it out for us. And I think the first 5 days for us, really the first 4 days is install. So that we took the first 4 days and we installed it, and we go back on day 5 and tried to maybe polish up or correct some of the things. We never look good, Greg, after 4 days, right? We're going to put the whole thing in 4 days. Most of it, I'd say half of it goes in on day 1, and then about 25% goes in on day 2, and then a little bit more on day 3, and a little bit more on day 4. And the reason 1 is so install heavy is because you have the entire month to prep for it. And then by the time you get to day 4, we're really day 5. We're going back and we're running things from different pictures. We're doing it out of different movements, different formations, and different shifts and different motions. But you're running the same concepts that you installed. And then the second phase, which is days 6 through 10, I also would say in phase 1, we're trying to get those young guys, particularly the ones in the running back room and in the receiver room. We're just trying to get the offense taught with them, so they have an semblance of what's going on and how to play as fast as we do, knowing the offense the way the veterans do. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 is we're going to add some of the wrinkles, some of the progressionary stuff that, after evaluating the season and looking at who we play this year, what we think we need to add to the existing system, to help us get a little bit better going into the 21 season. So, and that's from a schematic standpoint. And then from a personnel standpoint, at that point, the veterans are polishing things up, and your young guys now are probably just starting to play with some comfortable, confident reps because they actually know what's going on and they're used to the tempo. And then, the last 5 days is we work a lot on situating everything that we're doing. So that's really, from an offensive standpoint, how we would break those 3 phases down.
CL Brown, go ahead.
Hi, Phil. I wanted to know what ways you felt having more depth on the offensive line will allow you to do more this season. Like, I'm wondering if not having the depth you wanted last year kind of limited you in any ways offensively, especially in late game situations.
Having depth in any of the rooms is a huge help, but particularly with the offensive line, you really want to, in a perfect world, you want to have 8 guys that can play. And, last year, I think we had 7 most of the time. There were weeks where we were really, really healthy and you had 8. And Coach Searles is walking by right now. He's had these guys for 3 straight years. And these guys they have a lot of starts, a lot of reps under their belt. And, I think 2 seasons ago, we weren't very good on the O-line, and we tried to play ourselves into being competent. And then last year, I think we went from competent to being to being pretty good. And I think this year we can be really, really good up front. And a lot of that has to do with so many veterans. But we also now, because of the development of some of the younger guys, in 32 years, I'd say maybe half those years we've had 8 linemen we could count on. There's only 4 seasons that I could think about off the top of my head the other day talking about this exact topic. There's only 4 or so different seasons where I thought we had 9 offensive linemen. And this year right now, with the emergence of William Barnes, I think we are adding to the depth in the offensive line room. And then there are 3 or 4 guys right now that are flashing, that are doing some good things, that are showing a lot of progress. And we're hoping one of those gives us that 9th guy going into September. And I think that's pretty elite situation when you can have 9 guys that you feel comfortable playing every Saturday.
Ross Martin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Longo. When Matt came back in 2018-19, he mentioned he only lived 3 places: Hawaii, Bahamas, or Chapel Hill. We heard yesterday with the hiring of Coach Hubert Davis that when he wanted to start a family and move, he only wanted to move to Chapel Hill. You've had opportunities to go other places, but you're still in Chapel Hill. I was wondering the allure of living in Chapel Hill and being part of this Carolina community that you've noticed in your last 3 years, obviously never having been, not an alum and not having been to Chapel Hill that much before.
I would say it's so easy, Ross, to recruit here. And the reason, it's not easy to sign the kids, right? I mean, we're competing hard for some of the top kids, some of the top talent in the nation. That's not easy. I guess really what's easy is the presentation of North Carolina. I mean, it's one of the best educations in the country. And I think you hear that a lot of places, but that's a legit deal here at North Carolina. So you come here and you have an opportunity to go to the pros, terrific. But at some point, even your pro career is going to end and you're going to fall back on your network and your experience and your education at the University of North Carolina. For those that don't make it to the pros, and a large percentage of them, as we all know, do not, they get started in life with a huge advantage. If I am able to send my kids here, I will. If God willing, they see this as a great opportunity, and I can afford to send them here, and we can be in a situation where I can get them back to Chapel Hill in their adult life, and they're heading into their college. I mean, now, mind you, they're 10, 8, and 2, right? So I've got I'm going to be coaching a long time. 2, it's going to be a while before we're making any of those decisions. But I've never been anywhere, I think, educationally that's as special as this place. The network here is unbelievable. And so it makes it easy to present when you're recruiting. We're obviously one of the better teams in the country, in my opinion, going into the season. I think we have the best boss in college football. We're one of the best people in all of college football running the show. And we have a great staff. We have a phenomenal locker room. Campus is gorgeous. Academics is elite. I mean, you're in a situation, the facilities get better every single day. You're getting me into my recruiting deal right now, but it's so easy to say all that because it's all true. We don't have to hide a bad academic school. We don't have to hide an ugly campus. We don't have to hide, a bad area around the school. None of those things exist. Chapel Hill is beautiful, as you all well know. You're an hour and a half from the beach, 2 hours from the mountains. I mean, I could sit here for the next 2 hours and tell you about Chapel Hill, but it's so easy. And then when people come here, and that's what's really killing us right now. This pandemic hurts us. Because probably the greatest thing that we have is for mom and dad and the relatives and these players to come to campus and see what it is we're talking about. And to realize that we really don't have an eyesore. We really don't have a red flag. We really don't have a negative. And I think when you walk around here, a lot of our guys feel very at home here. And when they meet the people in this building, I think it's a huge advantage. So, I'm really impressed at how good of a job we're doing recruiting right now, not being able to get off campus and go see people and not be able to bring people here. You slide that over to my personal life. I mean, this is the first time in 32 years, my wife, Tanya, has said, every job we've ever gone to has been an opportunity. Sometimes you say no, and sometimes you say yes. And you only say yes to the opportunities that are really good moves for your career and your family. At least that's how we make the decision. and she's been great, and she's coached college Division I basketball for 15 years, so she gets the business and she understands it. And she's been willing to move, and we treat the whole thing like, hey, this is another exciting chapter in our life. As I hashtag all the time, the journey continues, right? And it's just another chapter. But here, I've gotten the elbow a few times, like, hey, we can stay here as long as you want to. And my mind, my feeling resonates the same. We want to be here at Mack Brown and the staff, and we want to be here at Chapel Hill. And the good thing is there's really, for us right now, no reason to leave. So my focus is Virginia Tech, the 2021 season, and getting this program along with Coach Brown and the rest of the staff where we actually want it to be this season.
Looks like Mark got kicked off. Jacob, you want to go?
Yeah, Phil, if I can ask you a quick question real quick.
Sure.
I asked Mack a second ago, and he talked a lot about his coaching style. That's kind of what I asked him about. And, being at open practice last week, one of the things I've noticed there and noticed in the past before is in a practice setting, he's very hands-off. He's obviously walking around to a lot of different position groups and watching it, but he's not stepping in and interrupting coaches and grabbing players, anything like that. Can you just speak on how maybe hands-off he is in practice compared to how hands-on he is behind the scenes? Because that's something else that he really talked about, is how involved and how critical he is with you guys, behind closed doors in the office and et cetera.
Well, I can tell you this, the easiest coaching transition, Jacob, that I have ever made was the transition to North Carolina. And I think a lot of coaches would share the same sentiment. You have, with regards to working with Mack Brown, no matter where you go, it's just like if you're a transfer student or you move homes to another job, what have you, you've got to, create new relationships with people at work and new relationships socially. And, the terrain is different and all that. And there's some adjustments, and you have different personalities on every football staff. And sometimes that's more challenging than others. Here, it really doesn't matter. We have so many different personalities on this staff. But at the end of the day, it is very clear how Coach Brown wants things in our building with regards to our demeanor and our temperament and how we handle things. And, some are very close to that anyway. Some are not, but they wind up being that way and approaching it that way and coaching that way because that's what the boss wants. And so, I think regardless of how you were when you got here, you learn very quickly how he wants it done. And as I've said before, he's got a plan and a template for everything. The reason the transition is so easy for me is because I think my demeanor and my approach and the things that I believe in philosophically are very much in line with the way Mack does things. He doesn't like conflict. He doesn't want a lot of arguments and debate. He doesn't want anything that's unproductive. And I'm really no different. So this transition has been easy. And the way we coach our guys, I love it. We're hard on them. We tell them what we think and we tell them what they need to know. But I think we surround a lot of that criticism or that critical coaching with a positive approach and a positive attitude. And we do it in a way that's based on the fact that we've got some trust in each other and some mutual respect. And typically when you have that kind of relationship with the guys, you can get a lot more out of them anyway. And I can tell you at the end of all that answer that when our players take the field, I think they feel the same way that the staff does. You want to deliver a win to Mack Brown at the end of the game. You don't want to disappoint him. I've said that 100 times. If he's pissed at me, I'm fine with that. What's he pissed about? Let's get it corrected, right? And let's get it corrected quickly. But when he's disappointed, man, I don't like that. I don't want my dad to be disappointed. You don't want your family to be disappointed. And because he cares about you and he runs this thing the right way, you don't want to disappoint him either. And I think that's the culture that exists in this building.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Coach. We appreciate your time today.
It's good to see you all. It just reminds me that football is back, and I'm thrilled that we've got spring ball. So good to see you guys. Y'all have a good afternoon.
Mark, you missed that Ross channeled his inner you there for a
I
moment.
appreciate that. I don't,
Yeah, thanks for
Well,
the assist, Ross. Appreciate that.
yeah.
Ross,
I went like
take
a whole,
charge.
I went a whole year without getting kicked off of Zoom, and now I don't know what's going on over here.
Not all heroes wear capes.
How's everybody doing?
Hey, Coach, thanks for joining us. We will grab a question from the group here. Looks like Ross Martin is going to start us off. Go ahead, Ross.
Hey, Coach Bateman, I just asked this to Phil Longo. When Coach Brown came back, he said he'd only moved to Hawaii, Bahamas, or Chapel Hill. Yesterday, Hubert Davis, his whole thing, the new basketball coach, said that when he wanted to come back after his NBA career, he wanted to move to Chapel Hill. I was wondering, you've had opportunities to leave Chapel Hill for another job. I was wondering, the allure of Chapel Hill, of the Carolina family, of North Carolina's university, in this general area in the Carolina community that is that you've noticed since you've been here in Chapel Hill and at UNC?
That was a long question, Ross. Yeah, Chapel Hill's been awesome. I was talking to my wife about this last night. So, with everything that's going on in our world the last, year or so, everything happens for a reason, right? So, what you've heard me talk about my son before and his condition, and we've had three UNC students work with him, kind of one-on-one the last year that have been unbelievable. Like I've told Coach Brown this before, like they I don't know if they exist anywhere else, but I'm glad they exist in Chapel Hill. Two girls and a guy that are both seniors at UNC that want to go into education. And so I think that's just an example of the community. And I thought, when Coach Davis talked to our team yesterday, I thought some of the things he said, are a lot of what Coach Brown says. This place is special and this place is different. And I think when we recruit kids, they see it, they sense it, they sense the community. So I mean, yeah, there's a huge reason to want to stay here, right? And the other factor is, right, I don't think our work is done here, and so I think we've got a chance here to be really, really do something special, and I think that's the mindset we have right now with the football program.
Okay, let's go to Greg Barnes.
Good morning, Jay. I'll ask you what I asked Phil. Mack provided us with kind of a general overview of the idea of 3 phases of spring ball. He said you might be willing to get into the specifics of what you're trying to accomplish in those phases. So I'll ask you that.
So which 3 phases do you mean?
Each of them. He said like first 5 days, second 5 days.
Gotcha. I got you. So the first 5 days, right, was just kind of go back to installing kind of the basic nuts and bolts of the defense, and we've spent time with them, really since the bowl game, working on those things, making trying to fine tune some things, trying to make some things a little bit easy, not easier, but like more streamlined, I think. And I think now we're in the phase where now we're looking at some different things. We're looking at, hey, do we like this call better than this call against this look? Do we like to package these 2 calls together better? So I think now we're kind of in the new calls, new coverage, new tags phase of the install. And then after about practice, really for us, right about practice 10, at that point it starts to become, okay, now let's put it all together and let's go do it for 4 or 5 practices and then, play the spring game. So, right now we're kind of in the new, experiment, what can we take out or do better phase of it. That's kind of where we are right now.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yep.
Jacob Turner, go ahead.
Hey, Jay, I asked Mack about his coaching style earlier on and kind of asked Phil about it as well. So I'm going to ask you too. One thing Mack mentioned when I asked him is he may appear kind of hands off in practice in terms of he's not, stepping in when you guys are doing drills and interrupting and grabbing kids, nothing like that. But he says he's very hands-on behind the scenes in the office with his assistants and holds you to a very high standard. Can you just kind of speak about his coaching style and maybe how it differs from in practice to, what you see in the office on a daily basis?
Yeah. So, during practice, I think he's facilitating the entire practice, right? So he's trying to make sure we stay on time because they got to go to class. He's trying to make sure that we're getting the proper amount of reps. The thing he does, I think that's I've never seen anyone else do it at this level, right? At the level he does it, rather, is his ability to look at the entire roster and say, this kid should be playing instead of this kid, and say, gosh, have you thought about trying this kid in that role? And I think that's like and I'm talking about all 120 kids in the program. It's pretty amazing, So that part of it, he spends a lot of time with us on. You guys see him at practice when you see him. He's got his phone out, right? He's not calling people, right? He's taking notes, brother. Like if one of your guys messes up, like if a safety cuts a route loose and I see him go to his phone, I'm like, man, I was hoping he was looking at pass rush during that drill. But he's going to remind you of it. He's going to ask you why. And so, he is very hands-on outside of practice with how the practice is run, what drills we're doing, why we're doing certain drills, can we focus on this kind of instead? So he is very involved with everything that we do as coaches, that our players do. And then I think he kind of lets us go handle our part of the practice. And then we get back together and he tells us what he likes and what he doesn't like.
CL Brown, go ahead.
Hey, Jay, I was curious. I asked Mack about the turnover question. It was something, obviously that he harped on last season, wanting more of. I asked him, and I'll ask you, how do you go about creating an environment conducive for turnovers? It seems like, outside of just being prepared, interception wise anyway, game planning. Like how do you generate fumbles? How do you go about trying to generate more?
Yeah, so I think turnovers come primarily anymore in the pass game. Whether it's interceptions, whether it's strip sacks on the quarterback, or I think receivers. I think the ball gets exposed more by receivers when they catch it and run with it than running backs. So I think the first thing to do to create turnovers is you have to stop the run. And I think when we were consistent in stopping the run, we caused more turnovers. Like there's no secret sauce, right? So I think it starts with, being better in the run game. And I think when you're better in the run game and then the pass game becomes something they have to do. And then on defense, you're anticipating the pass game. Then I think the ability to cause interceptions and cause fumbles increases dramatically. So, trust me, we are reminded of it, CL, that we need to cause more turnovers. And I do think our players, I think as some of our guys have matured and become more veteran players, right? You become more confident in going for the football some than trying to make a tackle at times. And I think that's what we've done. Greg asked the question about the phases. So like right now we're in the phases. Like one thing we talk about right with them right now is when the ball is exposed, right? When can we attack the football? And I think with more veteran guys, right, that's something now we can take a shot at. And so better run defense will generate more opportunities for turnovers, and more opportunities for turnovers will generate more turnovers.
Let's go over to Dina King.
Hey, Coach, when you got here 3 years ago, you had to just basically go with what you had. The defensive recruit that you've brought in, are you getting to that point where you can be comfortable unleashing your total implementation of your defensive philosophy? And are you really close to getting to the championship level type players?
So I think we've been able to recruit some really good players. I think we had some good players when we got here. I just think we have more of them now, especially in the front seven. So I absolutely think our front seven pieces are more, physically aligned with what you need to be to compete at the highest level in college football. And then I think in the secondary, right, we've had to patch some things, but I think now, Dre's done a great job with the corners. I think we've got 5 corners that can play that are all good players. So I think we've made great strides with talent, right? And now they need to, now we need to, as a defense, right, implement that. And I think we are closer. I think we do have more pieces in place to be able to play more parts of the components of the defense than we've ever had. Last year we really didn't. So I feel like now we're much more prepared to
to use every page in the playbook. And I think that will help us tremendously going forward.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we got time for two more. Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, in the last couple of weeks, Mack has said some very positive things about some of the second-year guys like Tony Grimes, Jaquarius, and Desmond Evans. Can you speak to your second-year guys, specifically the ones that didn't have a chance to have a spring practice last year, even the ones that were on campus initially, and the changes, the differences that you see in them now as opposed to last season, since a lot of them have gotten some meaningful experience, their bodies are bigger, but also how they carry themselves and how they are with in meetings and in film room, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, in the secondary, we have two players that had ever had a spring practice, right? Trey Morrison and DeAndre Hollins. So, and Storm Duck. Yeah, I forget he was a freshman when he first got here. So I think in the secondary, we are much more experienced. I think we have much better grasp on like what the pace is going to be, the conflicts we're going to see. Physically, I think Brian Hess has done a great job with all of our guys. But when you look at some of our young DBs, when you look at like Cam Kelly was like 216 yesterday. Jaquarius is like 220. Like when you look at like how big some of our safeties are. Like Trey Morrison's like 195 right now. I think when I got here, he was like 172. So like when you look at how big some of those kids have gotten, and they're still fast, they're still quick, they can still cover, like you're going to be a better athlete, right? So I think physically they've developed great. The thing with defense, and I think especially with the secondary kids, is the more chance we get to show them the conflicts, the more chance they get to have to make decisions fast, the better they're going to be. And so now we've got kids that have played a lot of snaps and have kind of lived through some heartaches. And now they know what it's going to be. And now in spring, the thing, I was riding down the elevator with Jeremy. We were talking about our secondary, like, those kids are so much more experienced and so much more able to handle the adjustments. The entire defense feels more confident because of their confidence, I think.
All right, we'll close up today with Gregory Hall. Go ahead.
Hey, Jay, good to see you. I wanted to ask specifically about Cam Kelly. You've been high on him since he got here, and this is his first spring. So just what do you want him to get out of this spring, and what do you expect him to carry into the fall and perform come time for the season?
Yeah, that's a great question. We meet with all of our guys, right, individually. And like the number one thing I talked to Cam Kelly about is consistency. And there were a couple games last year where he played at an elite high level. And then there were some other games that he frankly didn't. And so, I try to explain to him, like, if one week you play great and the next week you make mistakes that we can't survive, like, it's really hard to play at safety, right? Maybe a nose guard, but at safety, that's going to be a hard thing for us to swallow. And so it's been consistency. I think, tackling, Cam Kelly should be one of our best tacklers. He's big, he's fast, he's smart. I think when he's played really well, he has been that. You look at the Virginia Tech game, we didn't play great on defense, but Cam Kelly was a machine tackling in that game. So, there's games where he's played at a really high level. So, yeah, I think with Cam, it's consistency. I do think having spring practice will help him tremendously. He transferred, he missed all of spring when he was a freshman. He transferred in. We weren't sure if he was going to play until about right before the first game. Then he starts against Clemson and plays really well and tears his ACL. So he's out the whole season, doesn't have a spring practice, and then comes in next year. So this is his first chance to really work on his craft. And I think you're seeing a much improved player out there right now.
And are you kind of seeing that mentality? Like, can you notice a different motor since it is the first time that he's able to do that?
Yeah, so I think part of it too is like he's matured as a young man. He understands, hey, look, I've got to come to work every day if I want to be a guy that plays every down. And so Coach Brown has talked to y'all about this. Like, the competition is real, right? At safety, there are guys that have played over in 2 years have played over 500, 600 snaps that are looking around saying, I better get it right or I'm not going to play that much going forward. So the competition piece is real, right? And so I think, you know, that has helped with consistency also, because if you're not going to be consistent, you're not going to play. So, I mean, the bench is our best friend. Coach Brown tells us that all the time, right? So if you're not going to improve, right, you're going to get passed up. And I think Cam realizes, like, hey, I've got ability, I've got talent right now. I've got to be more consistent. And if I do that, I'm going to play a lot more football.
All right. Well, that comes to a close for the day. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks a lot.